Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of the Blackbird Grimoire. Welcome to the Daily Forecast for Thursday, August 8th, 2024. It is the day of the Hearthkeeper and the Tradesman. It is Thor's Day, Jupiter's Day, the 18th of Leo, the 4th of Hazel, the 18th of Salmon, the 12th of Hayanir, which is haymaking month. So in astrology, the sun is in Leo, fixed fire, which represents achievement. The moon is first quarter Libra, cardinal air, representing balance. Mercury is retrograding in Virgo, mutable earth, which means reflection. Venus is in Virgo, mutable earth, which represents perfectionism. Mars is in Gemini, mutable air, which means to be pugnacious. Jupiter is in Gemini, mutable air, representing questing. Saturn is retrograding Pisces, mutable water, which means to redefine dreams. Uranus is in Taurus, fixed earth, representing renovation. Neptune is retrograding in Pisces, mutable water, which means spiritual awakening. And Pluto is retrograding in Aquarius, fixed air, which means to examine intentions. So let's talk about those planetary retrogrades. Remember kind of these core ideas so you can use this energy to your advantage. For Mercury retrograde, reevaluate communication patterns. For Saturn retrograde, reclaim your authority. For Neptune retrograde, reclaim faith, joy, magic, and imagination. For Pluto retrograde, reclaim your ability to regenerate. And for Chiron retrograde, restore the heroic spirit. Now, our moon phase, we're now kind of officially at that first quarter part, so implement ideas. For the Libra moon, do focus on making connections, problem solving, group projects. Don't give in to blind romanticism, seesawing emotionality, or a manipulative flattery. Libra is all about keeping those scales in balance and remembering about what matters. So Gemini, Jupiter, and the Libra moon make for very complementary bedfellows. While on an adventure of whatever kind, it is quite helpful to have a focus on problem solving, as problems always arise on adventures. Libra also accepts external input and counsel fairly gracefully, provided that this counsel is not couched in emotional terms. But if it's just rational, practical, pragmatic, then Libra is going to be very receptive. And then, whatever your adventure is on, you're going to be carrying on doing that, and probably more successfully. Our tarot card of the day is the star. So the number assigned to the star is 17. And in numerology, what you do is you break that down to 1 plus 7. That gives you 8. And then that symbolizes new beginnings. It is part of the major arcana. And its keywords are a new sense of hope, inspiration, feeling uplifted, finding the way, and clarity. So after everything we have been through in recent months, this is a very favorable card. And hopefully it is giving us an idea of the trajectory that is ahead of us. And it reminds me that renewal really is a state of mind. So much relies upon our mindset and what it is that we are willing to pursue. Are we going to put energy into hope, or are we going to put energy into despair? Because whichever direction that goes, we are moving in that direction. And so we don't always realize when we get to a point with our emotions where we are perhaps wallowing, it's not simply experiencing them, expressing them, dealing with them as they are in that reality. It has crossed over into a line of needlessly wallowing in them. That is the beginning of the trap, and we don't realize in the moment how frequently we become the authors of our own personal traps. And that's really annoying because why are we doing that to ourselves? And then when you come to that realization of, oh, I really have been self-sabotaging, well, it's a bit embarrassing, isn't it? Especially, for those of us who practice the craft because we're supposed to know better. But that's part of the human condition. Sometimes we're not watching closely enough, or we're not exerting the force and strength that we should, and then we find ourselves in a situation that we made that we don't like, and that it's really going to be up to us to fix. It's just part of being human, I guess. But the star takes us in the opposite direction of that. It's saying there is reason for hope. Yes, there's stuff going on, but there's renewal on the other side of it. Use this as Okay, now the video is no longer doing its thing. Use this as fuel to build a future that is better. Today's Celtic Triad reads, 3 reasons for speaking, come what may. For instruction against ignorance, counsel against strife, and truth against harmful falsehood. So this is speaking up even if it's not going to be very well received. In previous triads, it's talked about, maybe you don't need to be saying everything that's just happens to be running through your head. And this is also, and this particular triad is talking about there are exceptions to this rule because, what you'll find more and more often in life, at least I have, is that there's a general mode of being, and then there are special circumstances to where you would deviate from, kind of your general course of your life. And it requires wisdom to tell the difference between the two. But if we don't try, we'll never make headway on this. So the first thing had to do with instruction against ignorance. It really is cruel to allow people to carry on thinking that 2 plus 2 equals 5 when we all know that it equals 4 for blindingly obvious reasons. And this is the trap of ideologies that people get into. It makes them ignorant because they are operating on a false premise. They have a distorted view of the world. And so all of that is going through a filter that is utterly detached from the actual reality of things. And things are never settled until they are settled right. So there is a time to speak up and say, no, that is not true. This is why it is not true. And I'm going to make sure that everyone has heard me say that's not true and the reasons why, because it has to be said and it has to be done. This doesn't mean that you do it cruelly. Although, we are only human. I mean, none of us are going to be, this perfect example of self-control and temperance. It doesn't sound like any humans I know. But we don't have to go out of our way to be hostile or cruel about it. But there are times when it doesn't matter what people say about us. It doesn't matter what they think. It doesn't matter what kind of reception we get. It just has to be said. And so ignorance is... particularly ignorance that leads people down a really weird road. That is something that has to be spoken against. And then strife, counsel against strife. People, when they get worked up into a state, they don't always really want to hear any talk about de-escalation. But the truth of the matter is that there is enough controversy and hostilities and conflict in life without needlessly manufacturing more. There is a time to say, this isn't the priority right now. There is something larger at stake. And so focusing on these things that don't matter is counterproductive. It's creating problems. And you need to kind of tone it down. I mean, that's what this is talking about. And yes, usually when people are told that, they really don't appreciate the person who delivered that message. But it doesn't mean that it wasn't right for that message to be delivered. And then falsehood. Lies distort reality, and that creates endless problems. So much of what goes on in life that has a really detrimental effect. You will find a lie at the bottom of it more often than not. Someone didn't want to believe that things were what they were, so they told themselves a story, or they told other people a story, and they put enough fuel and energy into it to where they were able to fool themselves and perhaps fool others for a period of time. But it does eventually crash. It will come to an end. It does get exposed, and you are going to be forced to confront the reality, the same reality you were trying to avoid to begin with. So speaking up against these things, especially when people are wanting to remain in their falsehood, does not make you a popular person. But again, it isn't always about popularity. There are times when you don't do what you would ordinarily do if no harm would be done. These are occasions when the harm actually is being done. Now, of course, you need to be sure of your facts, and there's always the danger of confusing facts and truth with our personal opinion and perspective. So hopefully there's a lot of overlap there. Hopefully. However, that will not universally be the case 100% of the time. So we do need to have a spirit of humility. And if we find ourselves needing to speak up, we should be very sure of our ground. And by being sure of our ground, that also means hearing the counter arguments and having a chance to evaluate them properly before we go out there and make a mess. Now for today's magical correspondences. It's all about justice. The color is purple, the plant is violet, the animal is the bull, and the crystal is the amethyst. And justice begins by practicing justice oneself. We don't see a lot of justice in the world because look at the character of the people, not only in the legal system, not only in the ones who are being brought to court for one reason or another, but just look at the general state of human beings. How many people truly value justice? And and how many of that is that really reflected in their conduct? I'm not talking about what people give lip service to. People can say just because someone says it, it doesn't mean it reflects reality whatsoever. It isn't good enough for someone to say it. They have to actually put it into practice. It is deeds, not just words. So if we want more justice in the world, it's going to require us to take that first step. And this isn't necessarily taking a legalistic courtroom view to daily life, not very successful, but it is about saying, I want to be fair. I want to do what is right. I know what is simple. I know what is easy, but I want to do what is fitting. And sometimes that is a different thing, and being willing to have the courage to follow through with that. And you need a little extra fuel to do this, especially when you're going against the greater tide. So drawing upon these correspondences, harnessing their energy, that will help us do that. And for today's practice, what qualities do you consider it necessary to really master a trade or to master a profession? There's too much talk about good enough and just scraping by and all this. What does it mean to really master something, to really become an adept at whatever it is that you are doing, to be truly skilled? And for that, I found this picture on Pinterest of the construction worker. Nice arms, by the way. Very interesting tattoo. But the reason why I chose him is because he's obviously hard at work. He's paying attention to what he's doing. He's focused. He's in that moment. So what other qualities do you think are really necessary to get to that point where you are very confident, very competent, very capable? I would submit that focus and keeping focused on what you're doing and what needs to happen with it and what standard it needs to reach, that's one thing. What are some other qualities that you think are necessary? That's something to think about. Then might study the Hermetic principle of rhythm. Take a look at the Witch's Pyramid, the North Wall, make an offering to the house brownie, and tend the garden. We're starting to come to the close of the gardening season, so I'm sure you've got lots to do, and today is a pretty good day to do it. Now for the journaling prompt. Now that harvest has begun, are you organized? Are you prepared? Hopefully you are, but if you aren't, use this journaling as an opportunity to just kind of sketch out a game plan for yourself. It doesn't have to be super detailed or anything. Just give yourself your general ideas, enough to get started on, so that as you're doing, the preparations and anything that you need to be doing, whether it's preserving food for the pantry or you're getting things organized for when cold weather runs around again. I know it's a zillion degrees right now, but that will change in due course, and it's as well to be prepared as not. So whatever this means for you, do yourself a favor, get organized now. That way you're not suddenly confronted with the thing and you're having to ad lib. That's not fun. It's super stressful. And hopefully you're not married to someone who does that. That is a source of conflict in my own marriage. I'm more so of, if I can see it coming, I want to be prepared. That way, when the time comes, I just execute it. I don't want to be brainstorming them, and I don't want to be forming a plan in that moment. And my husband is a Sagittarius, the Gemini moon, and a Libra ascendant. Prayers are appreciated. And he's much more spontaneous. He's much more easygoing. He thinks we'll just figure it out as we go along. And, probably a sensible way to approach life is somewhere in between my extreme and his extreme. And so, we're figuring it out. This coming December, we'll have been together for 10 years, married for 5. And so, we're working on it. We're a work in progress. We're figuring out how to make our energies work in concert with one another. So if you are on a similar journey, no, I feel for you. It isn't always easy. Just because you love someone doesn't mean they don't drive you crazy. So that's that. And on that note, have an absolutely wonderful Thursday. If you want to, you can follow me on my other social media at Blackbird's Brew on X, the Blackbird Grimoire on YouTube and Rumble. And of course, you can come hang out with me and the other members of the Oak and Elder Witchery if you are looking for access to, quick, organized access to pagan and witchy resources, as well as just getting to enjoy the company and the conversation of practitioners of varying ages, varying perspectives, and varying degrees of experience. So whoever you are, if that appeals to you, there's probably a place for you there. So come and see us. But that will do it for now, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.